Welcome to the Elevate podcast. This series focuses on elevating and inspiring women and girls into or to remain in the tech sector from the classroom to the boardroom. I'm Kellie Kwarteng, founder and CEO of Helzac and host of the show. Welcome to Elevate Women in Tech, the podcast where we spotlight trailblazers who are reshaping industries and elevating their fields. I'm your host, Kellie Kwarteng, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by an extraordinary leader in cybersecurity, Rebecca Taylor. Rebecca is a threat intelligence knowledge manager and researcher at SecureWorks, a Sophos Company, a member of their counter threat unit, a TEDx speaker, and has been recognised as Computing's Security Woman of the Year 2024 and Most Inspiring Woman in Cyber 2024 winner also. Rebecca, great to have you here today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, and sorry for making such a mouthful in the introduction for you. Some real tongue twisters.
We got there in the end, that's for sure. Right, so before we dive into our discussion about cybersecurity careers and the amazing work that you do in threat intelligence, I'd love for our listeners to get to know a little bit about you and a little bit more about what you do. So could you share a bit about your journey and how you arrived at your point in your career where you are today?
Absolutely. So aside from cybersecurity, I live just outside London. I'm a mama bear to two children, both under the age of 10. So we're going through a lot of challenges right now as they're figuring out who they want to be and what their digital footprints should look like. And I'm a wife. My husband is called Dan and he's a serving police officer. So we make quite the couple when you put us together. In terms of my career, I've been in cybersecurity now for 11 years. I started actually as a personal assistant. So I would be making the teas and coffees, taking notes in meetings, doing expenses, that kind of stuff. And actually on joining the industry, I really recognized that if I was willing to work hard and spend the time and make the connections, that I could be someone. And that was something that always mattered. And actually that I could help people, which is the main driver in all that I do in the field of cyber. So since then, I've worked in lots of different roles, even in the industry, all within SecureWorks, a Sophos Company. So I worked in resource coordination, so connecting organizations with the services that they needed, for example, technical testing or incident response. I moved into change management, so trying to convince people around the business that change was a good thing and roll out new services and tools. From there into incident command, where I was predominantly looking after customers who were victims of ransomware and guiding them through major incidents. And then finally, I've ended up in the counter threat unit, where I'm a threat intelligence knowledge manager and a researcher, as she said.
Wow, what a fantastic career. And for all those women, for all those people that are like, I'd love to work in tech, I'd love to work in cyber, because obviously it's spoken about so much, but I just don't have that technical background. That journey from personal assistant to threat intelligence knowledge manager, I'm going to get it right. Great. And I think it's just inspiring to show that that's something that's achievable and something that people can go on to do. Many of our listeners might be surprised to hear that you didn't obviously follow that typical path into cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. Just mentioned it there a little bit as well. You know, when we think of tech, when we think of cyber, a lot of people think, oh, I've got to have done a degree in computer science or something like that, or come from a maths background. So could you elaborate on how your diverse experiences have actually been an advantage to you getting to where you are in your field?
So I think just taking a step back, diverse life experiences, backgrounds, gender, all inspire different thought leadership and alternative ways of understanding the threat. So I think it's more important than ever that we have individuals from diverse backgrounds and diverse experiences coming into cybersecurity, because that's how we're going to best keep on top of the threat and the risks and best protect, detect and respond, right? In my field and the pathway I've taken, I would say coming from a different background as such to the traditional STEM background has been massively beneficial. So at heart, I'm an English and creative writing student. So definitely no technical interests. It wasn't even something really pitched at school when I was of that age. And actually, I use my English skill sets an awful lot in the role that I do. So in creating inclusive content, accessible content written for lots of different types of people, and even now using it to write my own research. So I've been able to bring that flavour with me. But actually, I think it's more the core skills of having a different background that have helped. Some people call them soft skills, but I think that makes them sound a bit fluffy. So I call them core skills. So being able to be empathetic, being able to bring people together, being able to manage time, being able to project manage, all those things that come with the background I've had, with being a mum and the multitasker I've had to become, coming from that English background where it isn't that I can tell you everything about coding, but I can describe it and I can write it in an accessible way that people that also don't know it can get it. So I've been able to bring a lot of those experiences and learnings along with me.
Perfect. And I think it's such an insightful way of sharing that journey a bit more as well. And I think, you know, for the audience and in terms of where I'd like to go next is to talk about career pathways in cyber. We talk about this cybersecurity career opportunity, and then people think, well, what is it? It's not just one job, like you've explained,
Yeah.
you have multiple jobs within your cyber career. So what range of roles would you say exists that people might not be aware of that we could kind of just throw out there for everyone?
Yeah, of course. So I wouldn't say I know all the roles, because the beauty of cyber is there is fundamentally that many roles that it's impossible to list all of them. I would say with cybersecurity and roles and opportunities, hand on heart, I do believe the world is your oyster. And that is fueled by emerging technologies, emerging threats, new risks, new legislations. They're all shaping the way that sort of job market looks and opening up new opportunities every single solitary day. A good place to start if you wanted more of a traditional STEM role would be to look on somewhere like SANS or the UK Security Council, because they have lots of maps where you can see the different types of positions, how they're broken down, what gaps you may have, what qualifications, if any, you may need to own those positions. But what I would say is actually, it's more about when you think about cyber, what makes you tick. So have a look on LinkedIn at what other people are doing. Jot down on a notepad what you actually love about cyber, what makes you happy in participating or working, or what you like doing in that space. And actually, I can speak from experience that 90% of the roles I've had have been self-made. They've not followed a traditional path or squidged into a particular role type. They've all been because I've said, oh, that's really interesting. I like learning and doing that. This is a gap that we have where I can use that. Hello, can I come and do that? So it's more about exploring what makes you happy and bringing that into cyber and seeing how you can make that fit. It doesn't have to be a predetermined, pre-built functional role.
What I'm hearing there is there's obviously that so much versatility, there's so much opportunity to own your own career, find something you're deeply passionate about, and kind of go on a bit of a going down the rabbit hole type scenario and making that career and that opportunity for yourself. And I think from some of the work that I've done and some of the work that I do with organizations, supporting them from a recruitment perspective, I mean, there's over like 50 different types of career paths within the field. And, you know, it's from threat hunters to incident responders to compliance specialists to engineers to security architects. The list does go on, and it is so varied. And I think there's so many different skill sets that are technical skill sets, but like you said, core skill sets, those softer skill sets that really do contribute to digital safety, to the industry as a whole. And I think for anyone looking to consider a career or a career switch or starting out in their career, it's definitely somewhere that they should check out. And the two organise SANS and the UK Security Council, I'll share some links in the show notes for anyone that would be interested, so they can have a look on there and see what sort of options are available or could be available to them. You've been recognised a lot for your advocacy work that you do
Yes.
within the industry, and particularly within diversity inclusion within tech. I think that's how we originally connected, if I'm honest. And I know that you support our Elevate Her programme, and I know you've done amazing stuff with your mentees. Why do you think it's particularly important for us to attract more women and diverse candidates into cybersecurity?
It's funny because when you said you've been recognised, I actually was like, ugh, because there's always something weird, because it just feels like the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and to be representing and putting your voice out there and helping others. I feel very fortunate that I'm in the position I'm in, and that is entirely why I give back, because I want others to have the same shot. A lot of what's happened to me is because people gave me a shot. So yeah, just to touch on that. Um, as I've kind of said already, the threat itself is a mixed bag of different genders, different sexes, different backgrounds, different lived experiences, all that beautiful diversity. And so if we really want to tackle the threat head on, we need to have that representation in how we're working and in the teams that we have and in the thought leadership we have present. How are you going to tackle the threat if you wouldn't have even thought that way? But actually, if you had maybe someone from that demographic, or had someone that had touched on the topic from a lived experience, maybe you'd see things a little bit differently. So that, I think, is why having diversity and representation is so important when we talk about threat intelligence and about cyber. The other side of it, which might sound a bit selfish, but it's a beautiful reason, is that I don't want future us, future women, to be alone, or future underrepresented group members, because when I reflect back, there were times in my career, especially when you relate it to different points of your life, like when I became a mum, that I did feel really lonely in my cyber career, because I wasn't surrounded by loads of women. You were looking up at C-suites that were full of gents. And so it was quite hard, and it could be quite isolating. And yes, we've come a long way, but the future women we're trying to inspire to come in, we need to make sure that there is that representation, and that that's reflected in policies and procedures and the way we work, because that means that people won't feel alone, and they will feel heard and seen as they own those cyber careers. So I say selfish because I want to walk into a room and be like, yeah, we've got loads of women in our team. But actually, I think I just don't want anyone to be alone anymore. I want everyone to be able to own their platform and their voices in cybersecurity.
Love that. So many excellent points there. And I think if I look at the work that I do, like in 10, 20 years to come, hopefully the points that I talk about today don't need to be spoken about, because
Yeah,
that inclusion is just there. And we don't, like you said, and it's such a lovely way, it's a sad way, but a lovely way to put it. So no one's alone. Like, you don't want someone to feel that they're not welcome to be in that room at that
yeah,
table, whatever it may be. And I think if we look at statistics, it still highlights the fact that there is huge need for change. Women in cybersecurity globally, I think it's around about 25, 26% of the global workforce in cyber are women. But the positive sign there is that that's up from 11% in 2017. So progress is happening. Yes, it is slow, and there's still a lot of work to be done, but progress is there. And I think if we can keep pushing on, and we can all continue to work together and keep focused on that inclusion piece. Diversity is key, but without the inclusion, it's just
100%.
never ever gonna get there. Or you might get them there, and then they'll just disappear
They'll
again.
leave.
Numbers
100%.
constantly back and forth, and that dial's forever shifting up and down.
Yeah.
In your experience, what are some of the myths or misconceptions that might be preventing women and girls from considering cybersecurity as a career path?
So there's obviously a fair few reasons why, but I won't drill into all of them, otherwise we'll fill up this whole episode with like, and this happens, and this happens, and we'll just be exhausted. So the first one I'll highlight is, I think there's this myth or belief, and we've heard it 1,000 times before, that you need to be technical, that you need to have that computer science background, that you need to be able to, I don't know, code or hack or, I don't know, build robots, whatever it might be, that you need to be a technical person and love maths and all this kind of stuff. I can promise you, I do not like maths. People say I am technical because of the role I'm in now, but I still would argue that I'm not. I would still argue that I've come from a non-technical background, and I'm proud to be non-technical, and that actually you can own your space and your voice in cyber without having that beautiful techie background. If you have one, great, good for you. That's awesome. And we love you for that. But you can come into our space and you can be part of the conversation without having an expensive degree that says you know cybersecurity. I don't think it's as needed as maybe it was believed to be decades ago.
Yeah.
The second myth I kind of hear a lot is this view that you had to have loved STEM as a kid, and that people that are in cybersecurity, we just loved physics and we loved maths and all that good stuff when we were children. As I've said already, I'm an English kid through and through. I like to read, and I was writing poems. I was definitely not tinkering with Bunsen burners or doing sums. That just wasn't the way my mind was built. And actually, if I'm totally honest, my mind is a words brain as opposed to a numbers brain. So I hope that resonates with people that are listening. So you don't have to have loved STEM since the minute you were born. It can be something new that you found or something you've read in the news that sparked an interest. You can change and you can evolve and you can become interested in things at different points in your life. And the final myth is, I suppose, this view, which we've kind of already spoken about, of that cyber is a man's world and that it's full of dudes and they're all in suits and there's the ladies that are there working marketing or HR. It's not like that. There is, like we've said, there is change happening. There is a shift. There's more of an onus on organisations to create spaces for women and other underrepresented groups. So it's not a man's world. It may have been before us, but it is changing, and the industry itself does want different voices and different opinions.
100%. And I think even if they didn't want it, even though I know that they do, without it, they're not going to be able to create the services and the tech that's needed that actually keeps everything and everybody safe. So yeah, I think there's 3 exceptional myths there, and really love that you've shared those and dispelled some of those myths, because I think sometimes we do look at the industry and think, oh, maybe it's not for me. So for any listeners that might be interested in exploring a cybersecurity career, what advice would you give them about getting started, especially those that come from that non-technical background like yourself?
I think the first place to start is to get yourself a mentor. There are so many organisations out there that offer mentorship and can offer support. So get yourself one. They are fantastic sounding boards. They can help you create a network. They can help with CVs, helping to connect you to people that could help you get that role that you want. So actually, mentorship is fantastic, and it, hand on heart, has changed my life, having mentors and sponsors throughout my career. The second thing, which again we've kind of already touched on, is to do your research. What makes you tick? What makes you happy? What career could work for you compared to your non-negotiables or the things that you can't shift on? So as an example, you need to earn X amount and you need to have flexible working so you can do the school run, but it wants to be in technical testing with a particular interest in pen testing, and that's where you want to end up, because then that's going to help you go and do that job hunt, and that's going to help you really zone in on where to look, how to tailor your CV, how to tailor your LinkedIn, and all that beautiful stuff. And the final thing I will say is to just not link your success in cyber and your next steps to having cyber qualifications. It isn't always about having this like plethora of qualifications or certifications in your back pocket. One, they can be very expensive. Two, there's on-the-job training is frequently offered in the cybersecurity industry. So if you feel a cyber qualification would add to a particular role and you can make it happen, great. But don't think you have to have this huge set of expensive qualifications to apply for a position, because actually the industry itself offers training. There's lots of mentors and other people in the industry that will help you learn. So yeah, they're probably the 3 things that I would talk to.
Perfect. And such great advice. And I suppose that one on go and get yourself qualifications, it's forever evolving. So actually, the qualification that you got a year ago, 5 years ago, is it even still relevant now? I'm sure elements of it are, but it's moved on so quickly. So I love the fact that there's that ability to do that on the job learning, that on training. There's no better way to learn, really, is there, than doing as you go along. So I love that that's an option within the industry, and hopefully might be opening some opportunities or thought processes for people that are listening in thinking, I've always thought I wanted to, but didn't think I could. So I love that. I love that we've been able to share that today. I'd love to dive into a little bit more about your specific area of expertise. So the work that you do in threat intelligence, in your current job in the counter threat unit. So for our listeners that aren't familiar, Could you explain, because I've heard the word threat intelligence before, what it is and why is it so important?
So, threat intelligence at the highest possible level is anything that pertains to our understanding of the threat. So, that can be things like indicators or tactics or procedures. And then it's about the associated collection, analysis, and sharing of that information out to the tools, teams, and communities that need it. What I will say is threat intelligence can come in lots of different formats. It isn't always in huge technical reports. It can be in podcasts. It can be in webinars. It can be in papers. It comes in lots of different ways. Sometimes it's a heavier language because maybe it's aimed at a team that has a more technical understanding. But actually, TI can be found in mainstream media. You just don't realize that it's TI, but it's talking to the threat. The purpose really of threat intelligence is to empower both individuals and organizations to understand the threats and risks to them that apply to them. So then they can go on to make cyber conscious choices and decisions, whether that be spending their budget or what type of technology to buy for their home.
Brilliant. Another area that I would like for us to go into and discuss is dark web. That when we spoke about the threat intelligence work that you do, and then we spoke about the fact that you work in the dark web. And I think if anyone listens to the news and you're not in the cyber world, you hear this kind of phrase bandied around quite a bit, the dark web. So as someone who works in threat intelligence, can you explain what the dark web actually is, and talk about the kind of work that you do within the space?
Absolutely. So it sounds really like ominous and spooky, doesn't it? I work in the dark web. But the best way I'm going to describe it is just using a resource that's from Dashlane. So I can share the link with Kelly so you can have a bigger read. But I just think it's a fantastic analogy. So if you're listening, I would like you to imagine an iceberg. You're on a lovely boat and you can see the iceberg in front of you. So the tip of that iceberg is above the water, right? And that is the open internet. So that's something we can all see. It's typically called the surface web and is anything indexed and available. So if you think you go on google.com and you do a search for your favorite lipstick, that is all open search, open web, and that's surface web because you can see it on the surface. Now your boat gets closer and you're like, oh, there's an iceberg. And you can kind of see like a shadowy bit underneath the water, but you can't see it properly. And that bit underneath that you can see is called the deep web. So that is anything that typically sits behind a login page or a screen. So you could use the surface web to go to your bank, and then you would go into the deep web to log in to do your online banking. So that's kind of the next level down. And then now you're right in the murk of the sea. You can't see the other side of the iceberg at all from the boat, but you know it's down there and it's at the very bottom. And that is what we would call the dark web. Now, you can't see it. You can't typically search it. You actually need normally special software or proxies to get into it. So things like Tor. For the everyday person, the dark web is unsearchable. There is a few caveats to that, but it's encrypted and it's private. You need those special permissions. Sometimes you need to do interviews to be in these spaces and working. When you're in these dark web spaces, think underground forums. So, for example, leak sites, which you may have heard of, again, in mainstream media of victims of ransomware having their data leaked. They'll appear on these dark web leak sites, and malicious content. So people planning things that are no good. Now, the dark web itself offers this kind of safe place, I suppose, for threats and risks and those types of personalities. But there are different forums for different types of content, and that can be anything from illegal substances through to firearms. But actually, the space that I am in is focused on the threat as it relates to things like data dumps, access brokerage, ransomware, that kind of space. So again, my focus therefore is on data dumps, access brokerage, and emerging threats. So spotting new things happening, new personas emerging. And yeah, I have my own personas in these spaces and I watch and observe and on the odd occasion may interact. So that is the dark web in a nutshell. One thing I will throw out there is you think of all these personas in this dark web space, they are getting more and more comfortable to come out and go into the open web and go into spaces like X and Telegram, where they can be quite brazen and be talking about what they're up to. So it's been going on for a while, but there is that little shift where you can see flavors of dark web behaviors and conversations in broader social media sites.
Yeah, definitely on X. I'm not an X user, but there's a lot more interesting content that goes on there, as opposed
definitely
to
only use X for research. I wouldn't be on X myself.
And thank you for providing that clarity. I think because dark web is used so much, and I think I did a bit of research, and it's like dark web is only really like 6% of the usage of web and things like that. So I think it does help provide clarity to someone who's potentially looking at that area of cyber as a potential career choice, or just to further understand what it actually
of
is.
course.
In terms of the threat landscape evolving, how do you see the threat landscape evolving, and are there any emerging trends in cybersecurity that particularly concern you currently?
It's difficult because we know the threat landscape is evolving and shifting, whether that's driven by technological advancements like AI and quantum, or even geopolitical events. These are all adding flavors and changing up that threat landscape. I suppose what we'll say is the threat adapts in the way we adapt with our prevent, detect, and respond activities. I suppose what I'll use this to highlight this moment is really the importance of all of us going back to basics, because that is the fundamental of keeping us safe and keeping the threat at bay. So what I see most frequently, and one of my biggest concerns, especially when I'm in these underground forums, is where old vulnerabilities are continuing to be exploited, but also where people are being a little bit naughty and reusing emails and passwords and not adding in that beautiful layer of multi-factor authentication. It's such a basic thing to do, and it's so openly spoken about, but for whatever reason, some folks still aren't doing it. And actually, those are what are empowering threat actors and those personas to get access to corporate environments, to get access to people's emails and banking and all sorts of things. So I suppose my concern is that is still happening. And that I wish people would just go, okay, I'm going to do my research on what good cyber hygiene is. So MFA, not reusing passwords, patching internet-facing devices, bosh that before they start buying all like the whizzy, sparkly devices and other technologies. Just get the basics done, and then you can get all excited and start spending that budget on other things.
Do you think that the check, because obviously the whole thing around MFA, passwords and things, it's not like it's a new thing that's been spoken about. This has been spoken about for years now. Do you think it's just that people don't really understand the threat, or can't bring themselves to have all these different passwords, because you need a password for like everything that you do, from literally paying your kids dinner money to marking their attendance at school to logging into your work and everything in between? So
I suppose when I relate it to, if we talk just to individuals, I suppose it's very hard to appreciate the importance of something when nothing bad has happened yet. So you hear the myth, you're like, oh, that's so terrible. That's really bad that they were a victim of fraud. Oh, but until it happens to you, you don't really get the sheer importance of it. I think as well, we have these kind of different generations that are using technology now and that are on the internet. So you've got generations that have been brought up with access to laptops and have learned about them at school and had them from the day they started work. So it's all very normalized, and actually they're more open to positive cyber behaviors because that's the way they were taught. But then you actually also have a generation where technology was almost thrust upon them. And they're suddenly like, oh, what is this? Okay. For those, I would say that's again where we have an accountability to our communities, to our parents, to those that maybe don't quite get it, in helping them see how easy it is to sort stuff like that out. So things like having a password manager, then you don't need to remember 50 passwords. You can remember one. You can use certain tools to help you generate strong passwords. better education for different community members on what fraud might look and feel like, on scams, all this kind of stuff, but in a really accessible way, on the basis that a lot of these people had technology thrust upon them rather than had that core education right from the beginning. So it's a real mishmash of reasons why, but please sort yourselves out if you're listening. It's like, put your mask on first on the plane. Put
Yeah.
your mask on,
And
sort
then help
out,
others.
and then go and help your parents and your family and spread the word.
Love that. For our audience, they might not know, but obviously you recently did a TEDx talk,
Yes.
one that I would highly recommend everyone go to listen into. I really enjoyed it. It's called Digital Shadows, the Perils of a Premature Footprint in the Digital Age. And I think anybody of, I'd say, our age bracket, I think that's why it resonated with me so much, because when, I'm not going to spoil too much, but when I was younger, there wasn't such a thing as an iPhone. My children growing up, Snapchat, phones, everything, it's all,
Yeah.
and I think it really touched me, and I really enjoyed listening and tuning in. So I've kind of ruined it a little bit, but
I'll let you off.
just really enjoyed it. Could you share with the audience what inspired you to create the talk, and really what was the core message of the talk behind the Digital Shadows TEDx?
Yeah, of course. So there were two main inspirations, and one, if you hadn't guessed, was the fact that I have children myself, and the fact that my daughter, who is 7, came home and said to me, I can't wait till I'm in year 5. And I was like, oh, why can't you wait? She's in year 2. Why can't you wait? Because in year 5, I can get an iPhone. I was like, oh, you think you can? Really? So it just kind of highlighted to me, because I wasn't expecting it to really hit yet. I thought I had time, but I really needed to be conscious to how cybersecurity and online behaviors and technology was already on her mind and impacting her. She even had views of how she wanted to use it. I can't make to wait videos and text my friends and blah, blah, blah. She had already had this predisposition of what it would mean for her. So I realised I need to educate myself. And then it got around school as well that I was from a cybersecurity background. So I started having parents being like, hi, I hear you work in cyber. Can you tell me how to do this with my child's device? So that was one element of the inspiration. But I suppose, and pardon the turn of phrase, like the final nail in the coffin as such, was during my dark web research, in my first few months of being in that team, a sextortion manual or sextortion guide was found. And it was shared with the relevant parties. But in essence, this guide told a threat actor, a persona, where to find child victims, what to say to them, what you could do with them, how to control them, what technologies to use. And it was just that sudden shock reality of this actually exists and it's being used, and there were other personas leveraging that content. And that was sort of the shake I needed to own that and know that I had that information and I could distill that out to people that it would be really useful for. So to touch on the TEDx itself, it was a painful but well worth it journey, in the sense of there's only so many times you can say a TED talk every day. I think by the end I was saying it 6 times a day to really make sure I remembered it. But the premise of the talk is about understanding our children's digital footprints right from the start and setting those kind of boundaries and how to behave and use it, and the risks, dangers and consequences that can come with a child having a digital footprint before they truly understand. But also highlighting, I suppose, for the adults in the space, how digital footprints can come back to bite, and how things you've posted as a young person can impact you as an adult. And then at the end of the talk, I give some options or some ideas of how you can best protect, detect and respond for your family and for your children. So it's a piece of content I'm very proud of. I hope it makes a difference. And yeah, I'm glad to have done it.
Definitely, and I've shared it with lots of friends because it's just such a bite-sized piece to listen to and be so impactful as well.
Yeah.
Since you've done the talk, what's the response been like from friends, family,
Yeah.
moms and parents, LinkedIn? I know it's out there, so yeah, what's
Yeah.
it been like?
It's been a wonderful response. It's been far further reaching than I'd anticipated. So, as an example, I had an organisation in South Africa reach out because they've translated it into Swahili so they can use it in schools. I didn't expect that, but to know that it's making a difference in other parts of the world, because the message is still the same, right? That the dangers are still the same. So that's been really special. Everyone's been very supportive. A lot of people have been quite shocked. Again, I think it's that unless it's happened to you, you don't always feel that it's real, and also that hope that no one would be horrible to a child.
Yeah.
So actually putting it out there, and I offer examples and use cases during the talk. So just a heads up, if you are going to watch it, listen to it, just be conscious that it is upsetting. But the majority, in fact, everyone has been very open and happy with it and used it and shared it. So I'm delighted. I'm hoping it's getting out there.
It should be. It's definitely a key piece to go and listen to and engage with. My next question I've got for you is, obviously you can tell you're very passionate about what you do, which I think is great. I think people that love doing what they do, it just makes everything so much easier. So what drives that passion for cybersecurity and digital privacy education? And why are these issues important to you personally?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the first one is that I fundamentally don't want my children or their friends or members of my community to fall victim to cybercrime.
Yeah.
So I do feel this weight almost and this accountability to use the knowledge and the information I have to make a difference. As I said before, I was given my shot. I've embraced all that intelligence and information. So if I can bring others along, whether that's from a career perspective or an education perspective, I should be doing that because it does help. And if it means one less child, for example, falls victim, then it's 1,000% worth it. Second to that, I suppose I want people to be empowered to really make cyber conscious choices. So whether that is a child sitting down and deliberating, oh, I remember my teacher talking to me, or that lady coming into my school and talking to me about digital footprints. Should I post that piece on my Facebook account? Whether it's deliberating that, or a parent going, oh, what kind of protection should I put on this new device I got for my child? I want everyone to have access to threat intelligence and an understanding of the threat as it means to them, so they can make those decisions and be informed. If you don't see it and you don't hear it, how possibly can you be informed and be safe? Yeah. So I just want to get the message out there. And as I've kind of touched on, not everyone is fortunate to be able to easily access this kind of information and knowledge, and also even be able to apply it. Whereas I think, again, one of the core skills I brought with me is being able to almost translate. So again, if I can use that, I'm going to do it because I want people to be safe and I want to make a difference and I want that to be my legacy. So they're really the reasons that I do it.
Love that. And I think that's where your background that you have in English and creative writing, that's your core skills really into effect from how I'm seeing it and how we've connected, and how you can take your passion and inspire it into others, future generations and everything else. And like you said, if it helps just that one person, helps that one child, you know, some of the stories that are out there are just horrifying. And it's the same. I've got a daughter who's 13, nearly 14. I've got a son who's 10. He's not so keen, not so bothered about the whole Instagram, Snapchat thing, whereas my daughter, it's like that's what she is all the time. And it terrifies me because I've heard some of the stories that have happened and it's just like, oh my gosh. So I love it. So she's actually going to be watching your TED talk as well.
No pressure.
I just think it is. It's just like you said, it's that getting them to think what they do today, actually, what is that impact it's going to have in 10 years' time. And I think that's the bit they don't see. In the moment, it's like, it's a bit of fun, but actually it's so much more than that.
Do you want that in your identity? Because is that you?
Never goes.
Yeah.
So it's always there. So I will be bringing this to her to have a look at over the Easter holidays. I think that would be a little for her.
Something to look forward to for all the family.
In terms of other things that you've got going on at the moment, do you have any other exciting projects or initiatives that you're involved with that you'd like to share with the audience?
So it's very exciting. And this is the first time I'm actually properly speaking about it. So it feels quite bizarre. Yes. I have written a book with
Yay.
my lovely friend Amelia Hewitt. It's called Securely Yours, An Agony Aunt's Guide to Surviving Cyber. And it comes out on the 1st of May 2025, available on Amazon. And the book is about empowering women to have careers in cyber and to own that. And we go through lots of different topics, from personal brand to adversity to career lemons. And it's something I'm really proud of. I just, again, I suppose it's a theme with me. I hope it helps. I hope that you can literally pick the book up at different points in your life and go to the chapter that's relevant and get that kind of agony aunt Q&A style energy, and just almost, again, feel like you're not alone because you can see the stories and get some advice. But it was driven a lot by the fact that we've both had so many mentees that keep coming back with the same questions and the same challenges. So we just wanted to make a really accessible resource that you can pick up at any part of your journey and be like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for it to come out, moderately terrified. What's the worst that could happen?
Can happen. Exactly. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to having a read through the book myself as well. We're coming towards the end of the episode now. I feel like we could have talked for hours longer, but hey, we have to wrap up at some point. So as we wrap up the conversation, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of cybersecurity. Where do you see the field heading in the next few years, and what gives you hope?
I will try my best. So I would say that is a really tricky question because, like we've already said, cybersecurity and the landscape itself keeps constantly changing and evolving. And we've spoken about the evolving technologies, these new bills and legislations that are headed our way, like the online safety bill. So I think there's definitely going to be a few wiggles and shifts to keep an eye out. And with that will come new roles and new opportunities and new concerns that may drive business change and business need. I think there will actually be more of a direct push on the public, on the individual, to take accountability for their own digital footprints and what they do online. So, but with that, I think there will be a push by government, by organisations, to make the understanding of that more accessible. So if something does go wrong, who do I report it to? Who do I talk to? Where do I go? How do I get help? Because at the moment, you could argue it's slightly disjointed in what the right pathway is and who can support you. So I think there'll be a shift, particularly with the online safety bill, that sees those kind of two things work in tandem, where people have to own what they've done, but there needs to be a way to get the help to get to the other side. And like I said already, I think there's going to be a lot of new roles, a lot of new opportunities to develop, new vulnerabilities as always, new organisational accountabilities, particularly with their bills. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, see if anything tickles your fancy from a role perspective. And like I said, build to that if there's something out there that's happening that you would like to be part of.
Yeah, figure it out, get involved, talk to
Yeah,
people, reach out. I think LinkedIn is an absolute fantastic tool, and reach out to people that are doing what it
yeah.
is that you want to do or get involved with, and ask them for some advice. And I think, yeah,
Literally, I mean, like we've already said, what is the worst that can happen? They might ignore your message on LinkedIn, but you just crack on and talk to someone else.
yeah,
That
move on to the next one.
it's your opportunity to seize the moment, so go for it.
Definitely. And then final question for those listeners that have listened in today and felt really inspired with your journey and want to take their own path into cybersecurity, what final advice would you give to them?
I would say seize your moment. You have nothing to lose by dipping a toe in the water, and like we've said, having those conversations, putting the feelers out, looking at what the market is like. If there isn't something that appeals, it doesn't have to happen right now. You don't need to run at the speed of light. You can take your time and figure out what you want and what you bring. And like I've said already, you don't have to go and spend a small fortune on degrees or qualifications. Really hone in on what counts and what would make you happy, and then figure it out from there with support from mentors, from your organization, and from sponsors. Take your time.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rebecca. It's been brilliant having you on board, sharing your insights, your experiences with us, and also your passion. It's very clear that you're passionate about what you do and why you do what you do. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
No, it's been an honour. Thank you very much.
No worries. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Elevate. If you've enjoyed the conversation with Rebecca, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share with friends who might be interested in cybersecurity careers, digital privacy, or women in tech. And all the information that we've shared, links to things, links to Rebecca's LinkedIn will all be shared in our show notes. So thank you very much.